Hey everybody, we are back after a long time with a new episode of the Nintendo Pipeline Podcast. I'm your host today, CMM, but you can call me Clay. And with me, I have.
I am One Up Muffin on the Discord, but you can call me Jared.
It sounded like you forgot who you were for a moment there.
I did.
Okay. But we also have a special guest today who is.
Theorymon. Well, that's how most of you know me, but you could just call me Chaz for now.
Cool. So, today we are doing an episode finally on Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Came out last month. Towards I believe October 20th was the day.
Yep.
First fully new 2D Mario in over 10 years. Um, I'm stoked. I love the game. I know most of us, all of us here have at least finished it. Some of us have 100%ed it and maybe multiple times, and we'll let you guess who that is.
Yeah, I would have got further in it, but I was on the middle of World 6 yesterday, and I said,
Mhm.
"Oh, I need to beat this game before the podcast," so I just
Yeah,
sprinted through the last world this
you
morning.
did.
Yeah, good call.
That's fair. That's fair. This is going to be a very spoilery
Mhm.
episode. So if maybe you are considering picking this up still and don't want to know everything, or you might be grabbing it over the
Yeah,
holidays,
and I mean,
something
we
like
can always
that.
say like spoiler-free thoughts really quick.
Yeah, we'll we'll,
Yeah.
we'll start with some spoiler-free thoughts. I think that's a good idea. So since you're our guest, Theory, what is your overall opinion of the game?
I guess it's actually a bit complicated. So, especially since my views on Mario games tend to change over time.
Sure, yeah,
But
you
like,
play every 2D Mario every year, correct?
yeah, except for Super Mario Brothers Special because I hate that game.
Mhm.
Understandable.
But my current thought is it did the thing I wanted the most, which was it brought forth a new level design philosophy for Mario. Because like
Mhm.
I know that like a lot of people consider this a hot take, but like before this, new Super Mario Brothers U was actually my favorite 2D Mario. Well, at least
Hmm.
it's campaign. I'm not counting the Maker games because that's
Mhm.
cheating.
Sure, yeah.
Um, um, and despite my love for that game, it really felt like it was very much like an expansion pack sequel to New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Like, here's more levels of these type, but more,
Right.
and like
Yeah.
it has a lot of content, and I like that. Um, and sometimes a surprising thing as I played through Wonder for the fourth time was I don't think Wonder actually really outclassed New Super Mario Bros. U for me, but rather it complemented it for me.
Mhm.
Like
Hmm.
it does things differently enough where like it almost feels like the game's level design and like how the levels were designed were deliberately avoiding the sort of template New Super Mario Bros. U would have.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Um, what about you, One Up? What is your since you've recently completed it, I'm curious what your thoughts are generally.
Yeah, I feel like what I felt with pretty much most of the new Super Mario Brothers series is really great level designs, but each level doesn't really excite me as a whole. But I felt like Wonder, a lot of the levels just feel magical in a way of like they're surprising or they do something I've never seen a 2D Mario game do, or they're just visually like exciting. But no, I thought it was a really well made game. And, yeah, I had a great time with it.
Yeah, I know on my end I had some concerns, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Mhm,
But in terms of like, well, what happens if you play through the levels and ignore the wonders? Like, how about the game structure? Like, what freedom do you have? What, are you going to be able to do a warp zone and skip worlds? Like, how is that going to fare? But on the whole, I really enjoyed it. There's some things I wish were a little bit different, but overall, uh, the game really hit the sweet spot for me, for Mario, and it basically just left me wanting more, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know if any of you felt this, but a common thought every time I was playing like a really crazy level of Wonder is, I want that in Mario Maker. I want to do something with that.
yeah, I think that's a fairly common thought. Everyone's kind of like, yeah, let's. I think one of the biggest questions I kept seeing people ask, like after playing the game, is like, what's Mario Maker 3 gonna look like then?
Yeah.
It's like, how are they gonna incorporate this stuff? And I mean, who knows? But okay, so that's sort of the quick and easy spoiler free version. If you are wondering if the game's good, the game is very good. Definitely buy it. Not that we're telling you anything you haven't heard before. Um, but I'd like to spend more time talking about the game, like in detail, for as much as we can, and that will include spoilers. So you have been warned. Turn back now if
Yeah,
you
go
don't want
go
to hear
play the
anything.
game. It's great and
Yeah,
it's not
it's
super
great.
long.
Um, so first off, the Wonder Flowers are a big part of this game's level design. They're a part of the game's like, very core to the game. How do you guys feel that that worked out in the final product?
You want me to start?
Yeah,
Or...
you can start.
Okay, so it almost reminded me. So, do you remember like the Ask the Developers thing where Wonder Flowers came about because it felt like there weren't any surprises in Mario anymore?
Yeah,
So something that was making me think about is if you look back in Mario history when they're like trying to introduce a really big new core thing to the game,
yeah,
the people at Nintendo are really good at like nailing so much of the concepts on their first try. But at the same time, you always think of ways where you're like, I know they can improve that in the next game.
Mhm.
right.
So, like, yeah, I had a lot of questions when the game was revealed too. Like, yeah, well, what if you skip a level? And what I find really interesting about Wonder compared to New Super Mario Brothers U is it almost feels like a lot of levels have like a different level design philosophy. Like most linear Mario games, like at least the modern ones, they do what Nintendo calls like the Kisho Tenketsu approach, where basically you introduce the concept, you expand on it, provide a twist, and then you end it with something that sort of mirrors the course. Like you see that in New Super Mario Brothers U all the time,
Right.
but with Wonder, Wonder is not afraid to go, no, we're doing something different this time. Like a pretty big example is let me think here. Oh yeah, so a really good example of this is the Cosmic Hippo stage,
Mhm.
Yes.
where the stage at first, like, it's all about, say, you hop on hippos and stuff. It doesn't necessarily like go too crazy at expanding on the concept. It's like you put the hippos in these places and you use them to climb a mountain.
Yep.
Now, and say like New Super Mario Brothers U, maybe the twist would be something like, oh, well, now there's Lakitus on the top, so you have to avoid Spinies as you platform with hippos. And that'd be fine. But Wonder does is it uses the Wonder Flower and it's like, the twist is you went too high and now you're floating in space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I noticed that like somewhat like something that's really neat to notice is that without fail, almost I think like every single Wonder Flower relates to the course's concept in some way, but it's not like the usual Mario twist every time where it's like, well, now it's this challenge but tougher. Sometimes it's like they try to dig deeper on a more philosophical level on what they're trying to do. Like
Mhm.
another fun example, that course in the desert world with
Yep.
the balloon fish, and not the secret one, but like the earlier one.
Yeah.
So at first, I thought, the Wonder Flower didn't really seem to have anything to do with the course at first. I'm like, you become a balloon and you fly through. And then that's when it hit me. Oh, that's how it relates. You
Right.
become the balloon.
Right.
Yeah,
Instead of jumping on the balloons, you are the balloon.
I love that for
Oh,
the Wubba levels, uh,
yes.
where
Yeah.
you become the Wubba. They're
Yeah,
great.
I love that.
Yeah, there's a few stages in the game that are like that where you either become the mechanic or you turn into an enemy.
Mhm.
That is prevalent in the stage. Like there's the hopper stages where now you're able to jump and you're jumping at stupid heights and you're able to break things with your head and like go through them, I should say. Um,
Yeah, and
The
Well,
level where you're a Goomba and you're running away from those things that eat Goombas.
yes,
Right.
I love that twist.
There's so much like clever things in this game. Like I played Mario U. It just feels like a collection of random like I know the level design is great, but in my head, my vague memory of it, it's like a lot of collections of just like a bunch of moving platforms and like everything rotates and like I don't really remember any like specific themes or levels
Stuff
or
doesn't stand out as
doesn't
much.
stand out
Yeah,
quite as
like
much.
that was actually like a huge difference I noticed. Like, even though I would say the closest Wonder gets in terms of level design is like you, at the same time, like a big difference I noticed is that New Super Mario Brothers U is really obsessed with like a lot of its gimmicks being like, here's this weird moving platform
Mhm.
that you said.
Right.
While with Wonder, Wonder will be like, here's this entirely new enemy you're only going to see in like 1 to 2 levels with a
Right.
complete suit of animations, and
Yeah.
that's this level's about.
Yeah.
So it's much easier to remember, say, oh, this is the course where the birds blow bubbles at you and you have to climb into the cave,
Yep.
rather than
Yep.
play a great new Super Mario Brothers U level like spinning platforms of doom, which is like a post-game level, like a really nasty swamp level with spinning platforms. That's cool, but like if you showed someone a screenshot of that level, they probably have no idea what that is.
Mhm.
Right.
With Wonder, like you could just show the enemy and everyone will be like, oh, I loved that course.
You said the bouncing hippo level, like I knew what it was immediately. And I know there's a secret one too, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
the regular
exactly.
one.
Like Wonder is a lot better at making its levels distinct, which doesn't necessarily totally impact my opinion on the game, as strange as that is,
Hmm.
but it definitely makes it clear why it's much better received.
Yeah, it's definitely more memorable at any instant. And something that's kind of neat, and I think even actually ties into that, is that when you clear a level in Wonder, it takes it shows you like a screenshot of your
Yes.
time during the
Mhm.
level, and you're like, oh right, yep, that was this stage. And I'm one of those weirdos who takes a lot of Switch screenshots, so I would screenshot the screenshot that it gave me at the end of of every stage.
It's great. If you ever go into the menu after you complete a stage,
Yep.
um, yeah, it has the photo right there, so you can
Yeah.
take a bigger picture.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I thought that was cute. Um, the other thing the thing that stood out to me with the level design too, just on in general, not just the wonders and stuff, is that one common thing in that started in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, um, that is no longer here, that I'm actually quite happy about, is the whole like pseudo cave, pseudo fake wall thing where it's very
Yeah.
telegraphed. Um, and you kind of like go to like a thing that's like maybe it's shaped like, instead of it being like a flat shape, it's like a curve, and when you walk into it,
Oh,
you realize it's a
Yeah.
fake
that's a
wall
door.
and has a
Yeah, they
sequel
yeah, they
or
didn't
has
do
a
it here,
secret.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
like
gone entirely.
I don't necessarily like dislike those on a
Yeah,
conceptual
no,
level, but
same.
like I felt like they could get sort of overused.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like that's gone, so you can't rely on that anymore, to find
Secrets.
secrets. Which I was able to find every secret, except for one, which I had to ask Mondo help for because I literally was at it for like an hour, and I'm like, I'm losing my mind. What am
Oh
I doing
wow.
wrong? Um, and it's funny because like I had an idea as to what it was, and my brain was just kind of like, nah. And that is, there's an early level, World One, in the
Mm,
underground pipe section where
yep.
it's about pushing pipes, and there's a
Oh
part
yeah.
where you need to push a pipe to the left, and there's a few bricks on the floor that prevent you from pushing said pipe. And I'm like, those bricks have to mean something, but like my brain was never like, yeah, blow them up and then you can push the pipe. So that one was like, I felt like an idiot after that. But for the most part, every secret in the game, is or like the main secrets in terms of collectibles and alternate exits and the stuff for completion. Um, it feels generally less telegraphed, and you still feel smart for having
Mm.
figured it out.
Yeah, although I don't know if this is strange, but or not, but didn't find any secret exit as tough as, I'm not kidding you, the first secret exit in New Super Mario Brothers U. That's like That one got me so hard.
Remind me how that one.
It's that one's like it's an underground stage, so it's like the
Right.
very like, oh, this is 1-2. It's an underground stage.
Right.
But what they do in that one is they fake you out thinking, oh, it's just a bonus area, but there's a secret above the secret that's actually the real secret.
Oh, that's clever. I like that.
Yeah.
It's very meta,
That's
which
really
Yeah.
good.
sort of how New Super Mario Bros. U can often be.
Yeah.
And Wonder took some of that too
It
as
did.
well. But
There's some very
I'll talk
weird.
about that later.
Yeah, actually, I was kind of curious. So, in this game, you have certain areas where you're forced to play a string of levels, and then you have open areas very commonly where you can pick which level you want to do, and you don't have to do all of them because progression is gated by the Wonder Seeds that you have, sort of akin to Mario 3D World or 3D Land, where to get to the castle or to play the castle, you need a certain number of Wonder Seeds to, get rid of the ugly piranha plant thing covering it. So it's interesting, and all the levels are also labeled in terms of difficulty. And there's also like mini challenges and side challenges and badge challenges and all that. So how you play through the game, especially if you're not going for everything and you're just kind of playing through the game, is very different, I think, for each person, because everybody's going to see different things. I know us. Well, I know you. I'll speak. I'll say I'm confident for you, Theory. Like we were just kind of going. You and I were definitely both just going through and 100%ing like as we went.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that was the case for you, Muffin.
I didn't 100%. I 100% in most levels, but I definitely did play every level in every world.
Okay. Yeah. So
Okay.
The regular worlds.
It's interesting because like that's me knowing I want to play everything, so I just kind of go and do everything.
Oh yeah, because it's so fun.
Yeah, but I think the
not only
average
that,
person, who goes through, of course, is not necessarily going to play every level. At least not like immediately. They might go back later, but like they may want to, progress more into the game. So that's interesting as well.
That's how my brother's been playing the game. He's been like, I'll come back to that secret later. I want to see more.
Right. But the thing that's
Yeah.
interesting with this, and what my point was in terms of like the linear stage order and then the open order, is that like secret exits in this game are different than they usually are. Because most of the time when you get a secret exit in a Mario game, it's taking you to another split of the map. But in this game, a lot of the secret exits are in areas where it doesn't impact where you can travel next.
Yeah, you know what? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So, there was a specific Mario game that reminded me of it. Reminded me of Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Where like sometimes they would have secret stars that were not related to your course objective.
Right.
I guess it makes sense because like it was clearly mentioned and Ask the Devs that there was a bit more of a 3D Mario influence this time.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole structure of the Wonder Seeds, like the open map, you choose your places and maybe even you choose your path. Like that feels a lot more like a linear 3D Mario game like Galaxy.
Right.
And what we're used to 2D Mario.
Yeah, they do, and I love the Wonder Seed as like this star-like collectible, rather than the more not disposable, but the lesser important purple coins. I thought it was interesting having that distinction.
Yeah, they kind of try to gate you in such a way that like you need to play some amount, but you don't have to play all of it to be able to progress. And that part I'm actually fine with. I'm not super wild about like needing a certain number of Wonder Seeds to complete a world. I'm not super wild about the secret exits being some of them are very much like the only difference with the secret exit is that you get a different Wonder Seed.
Some of those are they make you just replay the same level twice, almost exactly the same.
That's like what I was getting at, like how like Nintendo's good at like nailing concepts, but like when it's their first time doing something, there's clear room for improvement.
Yeah,
and Wonders like those courses where it's just like you just do the same thing, but you don't get the wonder flower. We're
Yep.
like,
Mm,
that's not my favorite use of the wonder
no.
flower.
Yeah, and what reminds me that it was one of the concerns I had was with that goes back to New Super Mario Bros. 2, where a lot of the level design in that game is very much built around collecting coins and exploring that. And if you, for example, go back to that game and you're not interested in doing the coin shenanigans again, and you're like, well, I'm just going to kind of play through it, the issue for me with that game is that the levels become much less interesting because there's a lot less going on if you don't engage with that mechanic.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if the same would happen with the Wonder Flower, where, if I'm to play through a stage again or repeat playthrough and, or I don't care about, obviously you have to do some of the Wonder Flower stuff to get enough seeds, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if I just
Yeah.
skip the Wonder Flower, like, is the stage still fun? And I think it definitely does that better than New Super Mario Bros. 2 did, easily.
Yes. I think the
Um,
stage
Funny.
generally is still fun.
yeah,
Um, and
So
some it could be pretty different if you didn't do it.
yeah, there were some courses that I thought like did the whole almost sort of like choose your adventure thing better rather
yeah.
than just being, well, just play the same course again.
Some of them, though, it's like the Wonder Flower is like basically at the end, and if you skip the Wonder Flower, you basically just hit the goal pole.
Mm.
Yeah, like I noticed like I didn't like write anything down about this, but in my mind I've been thinking, well, I'm gonna do a playthrough where I start categorizing these wonder flowers, and there is a type that where it almost feels like it's a more elaborate bonus room,
Yep.
which isn't necessarily
Mm.
a bad thing,
Yep.
but that's actually something I found interesting. Is like compared to something like New Super Mario Brothers U, which is really consistent about like this is how we design the levels in this game.
Yep.
New Super Mario Brothers Wonder is like sometimes like, well, for this level, we only have one concept, and the Wonder Flower is just this cute bonus room that flips the idea completely on its head. Like,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
like remember that course where it's a lava stage, but the Wonder Flower effect it makes it rain, and you start going through bubbles. Like
Oh yeah.
Yep.
that almost felt like a bonus area. Just going, wouldn't it be funny if the lava stage became a water level?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
will say just for Wonder Flowers that I thought like the idea of categorizing them is interesting. The one I thought was really awesome at first, the musical one. I feel
Yep.
like when I saw like the Bowser stage, like the Last World musical one, I thought that one was kind of weak, and I was like, all right, I've seen enough musical ones, and this one's kind of like the weakest one. So
Yeah,
Oh,
having this and
right.
otherwise very cool world, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember what you're talking about. The musical ones are interesting because, like, essentially, like, that is a Wonder Flower gimmick that is, obviously it does affect gameplay because things are moving in sync to the music, but it's mostly a cosmetic
Yeah.
centric gimmick,
Mhm.
which is not something that is typical um, to Nintendo level design, I think. So that, like,
yeah,
sometimes
Yeah,
you
it
get,
is
the
like
piranha plant
mhm.
singing thing or whatever, and you're like, oh, holy shit, like, that's weird.
It was so fun and
yeah.
different.
I
Yeah,
was
the first time you see it.
completely shocked by that. But the funny thing is, I guess I shouldn't be shocked because, like, I don't know if any of you remember this, but back in 2019, Tezuka was talking about how, yeah, we're going to be paying attention to Mario Maker 2 for
Yeah,
the next Mario game. And there's like those musical stages, people
yeah.
make those in Mario Maker
Yeah,
2.
there's
And
like a
like,
whole Mario Maker
Yeah.
subculture of music stages.
yeah, and obviously, like, they aren't as absolutely insane as like Wonder you get. You don't see dancing piranha plants, but some of them do get like crazy to the point where you're like, how did they make that?
Mhm.
So I
Yeah,
can't help but think like that was probably something that people at Nintendo were looking at and go, "Oh, we got to do those."
Yeah.
yeah. That
And they
that's
also feel
definitely
like a lot like those like Rayman Origin stages. Or maybe
Yeah.
was it Rayman Legends?
Legends. Yeah,
Legends
Yes,
had the
I was
musical
thinking about
ones.
that too.
yeah. Those definitely came to mind. It's not quite how they are in Legends, but the important thing is that gameplay is happening to the music, and things are um, things are changing because of it. There's that pair of courses that is specifically the blocks that appear and disappear in time to the beat.
Oh yes, I love.
Yeah, that reminded me of Galaxy Course a little bit.
Yeah, definitely with like the beat block galaxy and stuff. Um,
And that course is always funny to play online because if you ever play like Climb to the Beat online,
yeah,
you hear constant like Mario ghosts screaming around you.
Yeah.
yeah, I bet. Everyone's scrambling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Speaking of music in general, I feel like this game has like more of a music-y focus than probably
definitely.
any other Mario like game. There's even like some like multiple levels that are kind of like rhythm mini games, like dun 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 jump.
Yeah, like the
You have to like
Ninja.
jump to the beat, and I
Yeah.
think that's very clever.
There's even a badge that turns every single course into a rhythm level.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What? And like what's crazy is like the game literally has modified music for every single course just for that badge.
Oh wow,
yeah, that's cool. I haven't really
that's
even
amazing.
used that
Yeah,
badge too
I
much
didn't use that
yet.
one yet.
The
It's the
badges,
weird thing is like it only gives you a single coin every time you do it to the beat, but I think it's honestly made more for like people to record videos and brag about how they beat the game in a weird way.
yeah. I mean, that's kind of what the generally what the expert badges are. Where it's like, oh, you can go through the whole game invisible, or you can do the rapid, dash, like, you know, um, and see the crazy things you can do there, or, you know, there's weird shit that you can do with the grappling vine, or there's different,
Yeah.
stuff like that. The
The
badge
grappling vine
system is
seems so
interesting.
powerful that I don't want to use it, you know?
I
You know, it's
intentionally didn't use badges on my first playthrough.
yeah, same. Like I think I used the dolphin kick, but then
Yeah,
otherwise I just sort of stuck with the coin boost. I
same.
got weirder in the other runs.
And even then, I eventually shut it off. I was like, well, you know. But once I finished, I went back to stuff with badges and found it very interesting. Um, it's nice to see all of the different, like, some of the different jumping and movement mechanics from past Mario games show up and the new stuff. Like, obviously, the grappling hook is new for Mario, but like the Super Mario Bros. 2, like, crouch jump
Yeah, oh, I
being a
love that
badge
one.
was
Yeah, I
cool.
like that.
It feels so good.
Um, actually, it's funny you bring that up. Like, I think that's actually like the reason why I'm starting to think this is my favorite 2D Mario.
Hmm.
It's the badges and like oftentimes when I like replay Mario games, I try to play them in a totally different way I haven't
Right.
before. And badges are really good at
Yeah.
facilitating that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, that's
And
what's
even like
fun about what I think people describe 2D Mario and they're like, oh, it's this linear game, and I don't really agree with that. The courses split off in different ways. You can play through with different power ups or without different power ups or with different types of challenges, and you can go through courses in different ways because there are different bonus areas and there's different routes through the game. So like
yeah.
playing through Super Mario Bros. 1, like trying to go through the whole game as Small Mario, or you know, um, maybe trying to play through the game and make sure you have the fire flower to kill Bowser on every single castle, or maybe you want to do the any percent thing where you're using the warp routes to get the fastest clear, or you're playing to get like score maximum or score minimum, or whatever. I think that's
Yeah.
very important to the nature of 2D Mario. So the badges really make sense to me
Yeah.
from that perspective.
And
Yeah.
I think
Especially
those. Oh,
like
go on.
oh, I was gonna say, especially like even with the easy badges,
Yeah.
they found interesting stuff to do with them. Like, the exclamation point badge, which is sort of like
Yeah.
almost like the switch from World, but applied to
Yep.
every course.
Mhm.
My second run was actually focused on me using that badge for every course
Hmm.
to rescue ghosts. Like I was specifically looking for people to save, and that badge is insane to me because it's a full blown easy mode. Like with
Yeah.
almost every single skill check with like flower coins,
Yeah,
it will
that's
actually
amazing.
add blocks so then it's easier. And it gets so crazy they even made an Easter egg with it. You go back to the first course, there's an entire bonus area you only get with that
Oh,
badge.
that's funny.
Oh, that's amazing.
Like there's no like you don't need to 100% the game.
Yeah.
It's just there because the game's going, hey, you went back here, so let's give you something special.
Yeah, that's so
Right.
clever.
And that kind of goes back to what they were saying about secrets. Like the original game, you'd find like hidden blocks or weird things, even after playing for 20 years. And Mario
Yeah.
3 kind of upped the ante with that as well, where it's like there's secrets and little things everywhere. And I'm glad they kind of were looking at that and wanted to reignite that type of approach.
Yeah, I noticed that Wonder has like quite a few secrets that remind me of Super Mario Brothers 3, even though I don't think the level design's that similar.
Yeah.
Like yeah, like that secret in the first level with the exclamation point block reminds me of how Super Mario Bros. 3 would have some really obscure hidden one-ups for stuff like, hey, you can swim over the waterfall, go on top of the platform, and there's a secret. Wonder is full of that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, they have like those little sections where it's like if you happen to be able to jump on the ceiling, you get some coins. Or like if you happen to have X power up here and or a badge that makes it easier for you to get up here. Not that you can't normally, but it's just like little tiny things that just give you small things, or there's like a flower who says something funny.
Yeah.
I feel like Odyssey was really good at that too.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
of the secrets were
Like
really
you got to this weird place, like really high up in the sky. We'll give you a little coin for it.
Yeah.
There's a funny one actually. In the first Bull Rush level,
Yes.
well, if you do the Wonder Flower, so there's not a bottomless pit by that flag. You could just jump off the clouds and there's ground.
Hmm.
You can go underneath the flagpole and there is a flower who's like, "Oh, you found me!"
Oh wow,
That's great.
underneath the goal pole, and I only found that at, like my fourth run of the game.
that's amazing.
That's funny. Yeah, and there's, even some of the normal quote unquote secrets that are more progression secrets are very clever. Like, this pipe can't hold the both of us. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you stand on it, and it takes you off screen, and you're like, okay. And now you're falling. Like, there's this cutscene of you falling. It's like so weird.
Yeah. It's funny though. Even though it had Super Mario Bros. 3 like secrets, I also noticed it had a really specific kind of secret you mostly saw in New Super Mario Bros. U.
Hmm.
So, an interesting thing about New Super Mario Bros. U is that a lot of courses in that game have these really tiny little secrets that you're only going to find if you're like really obsessed with the game's mechanics.
Hmm.
So, like say the Screw Top Tower in New Super Mario Bros. U.
Yep.
So that thing reappears in challenge mode as a really difficult time trial, and it turns out the secret is that they're expecting you to use a ground pound boost. For
Oh,
those
I
of you
see.
that
Yeah.
don't know what that is, when you ground pound in New Super Mario Bros. U and in Wonder as well, you get a tiny little boost in the air. It's really hard to notice,
Yep.
but what happens is this can push you over the top of semi-solid platforms, and you'll now land on them.
Yep.
So that course has like entire sections where if you do a wall jump and a ground pound boost, you can skip an entire obstacle.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. They're very
And
conscious and aware of what the
so
mechanics they've created can allow you to do.
the reason why I bring that up is because Wonder actually does that same exact thing in a few courses. Do you remember that course in the fungi mines with the mushrooms? Up shroom, down shroom. The one with the cool pumpkin wonder flower.
Oh, yes.
So, do you know that part where there's a 10 flower coin?
Yep.
And it's like, it's really easy to miss it unless you got a power up because mushroom goes up and it's like, oh, I can't reach it now.
Yep.
Turns out they specifically designed it where if you do a wall jump and a ground pound boost, you get just enough height to reach it. So you don't need a power up.
Right.
So they have parts everywhere where it's like, yes, it's easier to do with a power up or a badge, but you don't need them. You just got to think,
Yeah.
what techniques can I use to get there?
Yeah, it's very important to me that they made it so that, especially all of the like progression based secrets, you don't need a badge to get any of those.
In fact, I found you actually don't need a badge for a single flower coin in a standard stage.
Yeah.
Every single one has some other way to get them.
Yeah. Which I think is great because that lets people kind of do it in different ways and figure out different ways of approaching the same
Yes,
secret.
And it goes further than that too. Like this blew my mind on my fourth run, where I actually focus on like using Yoshi, seeing how can I cheese the game with Yoshi.
I've been meaning to play through with Yoshi. Yeah.
And it turns out, because of Yoshi, you don't need to use the parachute cap badge at all in the game, not even in the challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
So like in the second parachute cap challenge, there's an interesting mechanic of Wonder where if you do like a crouch jump, you don't use certain badges. You'll still do a spin. But
Mm-hmm.
because of that, Yoshi can beat the entire course without the parachute cap
Oh, that's
and
neat.
get
That's cool.
every single flower coin. He could just 100% it, even get the golden flagpole. And it makes the stage much more difficult, but it
Yeah.
almost felt like a challenge mode sort of
Yeah,
thing.
but it's like cool that you can do that.
And then another good one, the break time one in World 3. So, you know the one where it's like you got to hit those blocks and dash across them before
Yes.
you run out of time? So, it turns out you don't need to hit those dash blocks at
Yeah.
all. You could just use the jet run badge with either Yoshi or the bubble
Yep.
and make it into a really difficult platforming stage.
Yeah, I think that, what is that channel? Luigi, I don't know how they say their name. Luigi Bros. They show a lot of like Mario secrets, and they do Zelda secrets too, but they show a lot of Mario secrets
Oh,
and
that sounds
challenge
fun.
runs. And they showed there's a couple of those courses that use the timer blocks. And they don't hit any of them, because it's
Yeah,
possible to complete the stage without hitting them.
I don't think you actually like. I think the only stage where you absolutely need to hit a timer block is that spike ball special stage, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of a one and done. Yeah. Um,
Oh, speaking of badges, I just wanted to mention this before I forget. I thought those badge challenge stages were really cool, and they
oh,
were
I
a
loved
fun
those.
little
Yes.
side thing. Like all those little side stages are really cool, but the badge ones in particular, just like because like obviously levels can't force you to use the badges, so having those specific badge challenges I thought was a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and they were very clever.
It felt Mario Maker-esque to
Yeah.
me because
Yeah.
like
Very.
a lot of people like to make Mario Maker stages where they're like, we want you to have this specific power up, which is like
Right.
really goes against what 2D Mario is usually
Yep.
about. Because 2D Mario, it may be linear, but like you were mentioning before, Clay, it's like there's a very sandboxy element to it where it's like everyone's run of the stage is going to be different. But badges are a good way to is like one of those the many ways where Wonder's like we're doing a different spin on this than usual. We're not following the usual Mario playbook.
Right.
So I thought it was really good that Wonder would go out of its way to go, here's a set of stages with a completely different approach to level design.
Yeah. And like those break time stages are very interesting because they have such range to them.
Mhm.
Some of them are as simple as like there's that one, I think that's somewhat later in the game, that's like the rotating, I don't want to say maze, but you know what I mean? It's like the rotating
I love
box.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
And then then you have the one where you have the drill cap, and like it's just you go through a few rooms like by going underneath some walls, and like it's in a crate at the end. Or then you have the ones that are just the music ones again, where you're like killing piranha plants and it's playing like Delfino Plaza in the background or whatever.
Those are so cute.
Yeah, it almost reminded me like have you guys ever heard of Uno Mas levels in Mario Maker?
No.
I don't think I've heard
Okay.
that.
So basically they're usually these incredibly quick stages that
Mhm.
aren't often about challenge, but they're basically just showing some sort of technique or weird thing you didn't know about Mario Maker.
Right.
Like, say, there might be a course where it's like, I remember one where it's like you're trapped in this one way and you're like, oh no, I'm soft locked. And then this big mushroom appears in a specific way and pushes you through them. And you're like, I didn't know the game worked like that.
Right.
That's what break times often reminded me of. They're just showing little snippets of things that you didn't think about.
Yeah, and they're fast and furious and are kind of nice to break up the pacing too. And
Yeah.
it's also
It's just
cool.
fun way to
Oh.
put devs. How devs put silly little ideas in there.
Yeah.
I also like how some of the break times spawn from clearing other levels or
Mhm.
clearing a special exit in other levels. It kind of helped kind of improve that situation a bit, since they don't really provide actual alternate paths most of the time. The ones that do are strange, like the first secret exit in the game,
Oh, yeah.
where all it does is it brings you to Captain Toad.
Yeah.
And he says some shit and gives you some coins, and then you just go back through the pipe. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Like,
that was so strange to me because like when that happened, I'm like, oh, am I about to skip a ton of stuff?
yeah.
No.
And I guess that is probably my biggest issue with the game in that it doesn't have the traditional like warp route. Um, Obviously, if
Yeah.
you're, there's unintended ways to skip the first three worlds, but in terms of going through a repeat playthrough and saying like, hey, like, like Mario 1, I can skip to World 4, or, whatever. Every 2D Mario game has some sort of form of that, whether it's a standard warp room, or it's, the magic whistle, or it's, how Star Road works in Mario World, or, you know,
Or like
um,
how you would just be like, here's this island pops up and it
right.
just
Like,
you play a weird course and now you're in a completely different world.
right. Like, all of them have that, but Wonder does not.
And
Now,
that surprised me a lot.
it surprised me, and that is actually one of the things that surprised me in a not good way. Because the freedom with which you can travel um, through 2D Mario, I think, is so much fun and is a lot of fun for repeat playthroughs.
Yeah.
Um, so when I first was playing through and got to the special world, I was like, oh, okay, this looks like Star Road already. So I'm guessing once I finish this stage and wherever it will take me, it'll let me warp to a different world. But it doesn't. It just
Yeah.
splits you out on that platform, and all you can do is go back, essentially.
Yeah,
Um,
that was really weird.
yeah. So like, I was super stoked when Special World showed up, and I was like, oh, what is happening here? Like, I'm going someplace, and uh, then I was kind of let down when I beat the stage that, oh, it's just kind of like this is just the hub for whenever, you know,
it,
you end up
it
getting access to the other
almost
stages.
it almost made me wonder if like Nintendo is thinking, man, it sucks how nobody remembers World 7 in Super Mario Brothers.
So we're
So
gonna
they're
make you
like,
play it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I almost wondered if it was like almost like a bit of a pride thing. No, you are playing through our game this time.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it's neat because the second half of the game lets you choose the world order, which is nice. It's something that I kind of wish happened earlier. Um, and I
yeah.
do like the Petal Islands as like a
Mhm.
almost like a
Yeah.
central part where you have to actually play stages in between worlds. I thought that was interesting, but
Yeah,
it's very
almost
restrictive.
sometimes felt like a good way to decompress too.
Yeah.
Because I noticed like I still haven't like nailed down what the difficulty curve of Wonder is. Like they even mentioned this in Acid Devs where they're like that it's not really a difficulty curve, but like they throw in some harder stages in early if you just want to do them.
Right.
Yeah, the star difficulty system was interesting. How you kind of can just like stick to easy mode stages if you want to until like the end. But yeah, it's a good way of having like dynamic difficulty. There's a lot of dynamic difficulty things, which is cool.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
exclamation point badge that we
Mhm.
talked about earlier is
Yeah, and the
crazy.
Yoshis and the
Yeah.
And um not only that, but like I'm still actually finding new stuff that sort of blows my mind in this game.
Yeah.
Like just from the multiplayer, I
oh
was
yeah, we
doing
could talk about
oh,
that.
I might as well mention this. I'm just gonna warn you all, this is for the very final stage of the game.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the badge
Yeah.
marathon.
So the final
So
final test.
which is actually like one of my favorite final exam style courses in the series now.
Hmm.
But it got even better for me because I was doing races with them. So like, racing against people
Right.
like with and friend lobbies. And I had a really close race where I barely won, but this guy kept going ahead of me in the jet run section. I'm like, I don't get how this guy's so much faster than me. Well, it turns out there's a secret in that area. It turns out if you decide I'm going to run off the first platform instead of jumping,
Yep.
you actually land on a missile, which
Yep.
increases your speed. So they went as far as to include shortcuts into even the final stage. And like to be clear, there's no benefit for doing this in single player,
Yeah.
but in multiplayer, you need to do that shortcut. So
Mhm.
it's like it blew my mind. It's like, how many layers to this level design is there? Like, is this the first Mario game where they literally designed some courses in mind for multiplayer races?
Yeah, there's some weird stuff. The other thing,
Or
I know we haven't mentioned it yet, and it does play into multiplayer as well, are obviously the characters do not have differences in terms of well, the standard characters do not have differences in
Mhm.
terms of gameplay.
Yeah.
However, there are hidden blocks that only will visually appear when you're
oh
playing
yes,
as a
Yeah,
character.
I don't I don't really care for that.
I'm not
it,
crazy about it,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
but
I will admit the part I didn't like for that is my least favorite stages in the game.
mhm.
Well, like at least the non-standard ones were often the search parties because it
Yep.
often just felt like it was a bunch of people online jumping into the air until they found hidden blocks. I didn't like
Yeah.
that.
So okay, I think I'm gonna defend search parties for a second.
Okay.
I think they're pretty cute to play online because you get this community aspect. I was doing one of them, and there's one really like kind of hard where you have like a drill and you have to like go on a moving platform,
Yep.
go
That's the
drill
one I
under a
really
wall,
liked.
and like people were just being so friendly and nice. Like the one person who figured it out was like, "Hey, everybody else, come over here."
Yes, I
And
did. I love that one actually.
Yeah.
we just stayed and like just kept because like there was some like little kid or whatever who just like could not understand what we were doing. So we just kept demonstrating and demonstrating, and like they finally figured it out, and it was like yes, like
Yeah.
it felt like just such a nice thing that we like multiple people were helping this obviously like much like worse player, newer player, figure it out too.
Oh yeah, I had a moment like that as well. Not in a search party, although that one's my favorite search party because it doesn't revolve around invisible blocks.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most memorable things in the game for me now was actually a multiplayer where so you know the first secret exit in the game
Mhm.
where you have to jump over a pipe after you get the musical wonder seed
Mhm.
and you go into the pipe. So I would like to show people how to get there. And I think one of the most memorable things to me is I taught someone how to run that way. Like it was very clearly a little kid. Like he was only jumping while walking, having a hard time. And I just kept going there over and over again, showing them how to do that. Once he figured it out for the first time in that course, he started running and he was just running everywhere in the secret area. It's like I just teach this kid to play Mario.
Yeah, you taught him the beep dash.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's funny. I speaking of that, I was on a Mario Discord server where there was actually a debate about the B dash, believe it or not,
And
whether it should still be a thing.
oh yeah,
It's like as like for Wonder, like Wonder likes to break the mold in Mario a lot, but there's some stuff where it's very strictly traditional. Like
right.
it's so traditional about the run button
Yeah.
where you can't even like remap the button in the Switch controls to go be like, okay, I could run and shoot. There's apparently a buffer where if you try to shoot, you will stop running. Like they
Yeah.
will not let you do both. So it's like staunchly traditional in some way, in some unexpected ways. So I guess there's been some debate on like, should it stick around? Like it got to the point where they force you to do a wiggler race, literally just to be like, hold the run button already.
Yeah. Yeah. That I find very interesting. There are certain rules of Mario that are unwritten that there's a lot of people who like maybe don't play 2D Mario very often and they don't realize, but like to people who do play them, it's like, oh yeah, no, of course it's that way. And one of those, the most common example I think is the whole if you're touching a pipe that a piranha plant comes out of, it will not come out of the pipe until you've stopped touching it.
Yes,
Um,
except
hasn't that always been a Mario?
so yeah, except for one thing.
yeah,
Lost Levels in its love of
being an asshole.
yeah, has a piranha plant that ignores that rule.
Yeah,
Of course it does.
And like what's fun is that it will actually like make courses designed around that where it's like it turns pipes into these really scary platforms. It's like I see that red piranha plant there. I can't be on there for long.
right. Um, but yeah, like the whole like if you touch the pipe from the side, the piranha plant's not going to come out, or like you know, just like little things, um,
Yeah, yeah, it's
like
funny.
that.
Sometimes it even applies beyond 2D Mario. Like,
Yeah.
I've been playing the Mario RPG remake, and it
Mhm.
follows that rule too, which
Yeah.
sort of blew my mind.
Yeah, that's yeah, like that's just kind of like one of those things like, oh, that's how it is here. Like and some people will know that and some people won't. And then you explain it to someone who doesn't and all of a sudden the way they see the game changes um just in that small way. Which I think
Yeah,
is fun. It's just one of
you
those
know,
yeah.
and on that note, multiplayer sort of changed my view too. In that, like, I've said this before in other places where, like, I would jokingly say Mario Maker made me realize how bad people are at Mario.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But seeing people like play with me in real time was really eye opening because, like, to me at least, I was like, I love Wonder, but it's definitely one of the easier Mario's, and I think
Hmm.
a lot of hardcore Mario people think that.
Yeah,
But
I would
then when I
agree.
played like a run where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna focus on saving people. Every person must get through this course.
Right.
Like, you start seeing why people keep dying in Mario over and over again. It was really eye opening. It wasn't just like the usual suspects, like they're not running.
Right.
Like, you could almost see like mental blocks people were having in real time, where some people were like they didn't like to move while jumping because like
Mhm.
it seemed a bit scary to them. Like, oh no, I'm going over this pit.
Right.
Like, you could see the hesitation and how
Yeah.
people were playing.
It's fascinating. Like moving platforms as well. Like people like have a really hard time following like moving platforms, and
Oh
they'll
yeah,
just like jump right over them.
yeah. Or like another really interesting thing was you would see like how players would miss secrets that would seem obvious to you,
Yep.
and I don't know, like this is crazy to admit to me, but I think one of the strongest parts of Wonder is actually its multiplayer.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Like, it makes you approach the game in a completely different way. It's not just like, not even just it makes the game easier, but like,
Right.
I went out of my way to actually max out the heart counter, which
Yeah, I
took a
saw
long
that.
time. It took a long time to do that,
Yeah.
and oftentimes it would actually make the game more challenging for me because I would get players who like were clearly not ready for, say, the Bowser world.
Right.
Like, they were constantly dying at every single wonder effect. And I would put myself at risk and often even die saving them.
Yeah.
But it's like, what's so cool about it is that I can play the game again online and get a completely different experience.
Mhm.
Totally depends on who I'm playing with.
Something I thought
Yeah.
that was interesting with that whole thing too with the heart score or whatever. There's almost like this separate metagame at trying to get a high heart score, like where you place standees, if you
Yeah.
place them in places that other people don't place them in, if you place them
Oh,
around the same places that
Clay,
people
this
place
is
them.
welcome to Dark Souls.
Yeah.
This
It's
is a huge thing.
yeah,
It,
it's like, oh, I'm having trouble getting hearts because my standee placements, or I'm not thinking about placing standees, so I don't get hearts or
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, sometimes there was a few times in like some of my runs
Hmm.
where it almost like I noticed when some of us had high heart rankings, we would start to compete to help the little kid, and it got to the point where I accidentally got someone killed that way because we
Toxic
were all,
helping.
yeah, like we were trying to like take our balloon, and dude gets an elephant, and he then gets hit. I guess it threw off his rhythm, and he falls off a cliff. It's like that was happening enough where I was like, wow, I've never seen this kind of meta in a Mario game before, where you're trying to out help your
Yeah.
opponents.
It's
I
funny.
just think that
Oh, go ahead.
online just being so generally kind and helpful is just wonderful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
yeah, I know I first I was like, "Oh, I'm just going to turn this feature off." And then I had it on and I was like, "Oh, this is actually actually enhances my experience rather than takes it away.
Yeah.
So I try to keep it on as much as I could.
For me, the online is the post game because I very specifically had it turned off through the whole game because I didn't want to see, like, I didn't want any help finding, like, the progression secrets. Like, I wanted to find that all by myself. So I never turned it on until I had 100%ed the game. So, with the online being on and all of the game's content being complete for me in terms of, progression stuff, going online and like helping people or like seeing how people do different things has been like the post game for me, and I think that's very interesting. Um,
Yeah, and
did you
it almost
notice?
feels like there's like a lot of sections where it feels like they're really designed it online in mind,
Yeah.
where it's like they know like they even showed this in the direct. You remember that flower coin where you
Mm-hmm.
have to jump on a buzzy beetle over the lava to get it?
Yep.
Whenever you go there online, there's like a bazillion standees there because and they're needed because I'll like wait there just because I'm curious, and I see so many people just immediately die in that section.
Something I've noticed. I was watching some friends play the game. This is kind of another one of those small, like, rules of Mario things that I don't think about, but I realized they didn't understand, and that is there's a start or there's a purple coin in a bonus room in I think World 2, and it involves some dash panels or whatever. And basically, you need to land on the last enemy and have the button held down so that you bounce higher to get the 10 coin. And
Hmm.
there are so many people I've noticed who don't understand that if you if you have the jump button held when you land on an enemy, that you jump higher off of it.
It's a hard thing to understand. I mean,
Yeah,
like it's
there's
it's
like
like
some
we
people
know
who try
so
to time it.
intuitively.
Oh yeah, that's something you see in Mario Maker a lot. Like I
Yeah,
didn't get that when I was like making Mario stages at first, where I'm like, I don't get it. How is this hard?
yeah,
Yeah, like so many people don't actually realize that you hold the button.
Mhm.
right.
But like when you think about it, not a lot of 2D platformers actually do that.
Yeah, it's a very specific thing. Donkey Kong Country is interesting because that game you can't just hold it; you have to time it when you land on the
Yes.
enemy and returns and tropical freeze.
Yeah, and it's like huge in Donkey Kong. You need it a lot of the time in
Yeah,
Country.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like the other
Country
thing
is
is
just
like,
like a more hardcore platformer in general, I feel.
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
totally. So like, I'm sure you guys have seen this in a bunch of interviews, but ever since Super Mario World specifically, they've been trying to make it so as many people can reach at least reach the credits as possible.
Mm.
yep,
Like this could be like sort of fun for challenge runs, but like almost every standard course in a Mario game can be completed without running
yep,
or doing those kind of bounces.
yep,
It'll make some of them really hard,
yep,
but it's possible. And they do that specifically because they know a lot of players don't do those things.
yeah, yep. You know, Actually, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this as well. I don't think well, okay. Thoughts is a strong word. I guess I wanted to express my frustration about one thing, which is that the game has one save profile
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't like
per
that.
account, which is unfortunate because one, every Mario that has allowed you to save in the past has given you multiple save slots. Obviously,
Mhm.
you know, this is a little different with it being a profile based thing, but like a game like this that's so replayable or that you would actually want to play from the beginning, like without having free reign on the map, that you can't do that simply is like mind blowing to me.
Yeah,
Yes,
just no reason. It's just
especially
silly.
like it's gonna sound nuts, and to be clear, I don't think it makes sense for Nintendo to think about this, but as you mentioned earlier, Clay, with the whole you can skip like the first 3 worlds of the glitch.
Yep.
So a really cool thing about Mario, at least for me, is that it's a series where oftentimes glitches can make the game better. Like
Yeah.
I think everyone thinks of like Super Mario 64 with backwards long jumps, right? Like
Right.
that's a great one. Or the
Mhm.
minus world, which is actually like really World 36 in Super Mario Brothers, but I'm
Yeah.
not getting into that for now. But like I think it's super cool that there's even a glitch like that in Wonder. But that's also the kind of glitch where you there's no point in doing it if you've already completed the game. You want to do it profile.
Yeah.
So that means you gotta make another account. Like, and maybe not to go online with, but it's still really
Yeah.
silly to me.
Yeah.
And then like again, this is another minor thing, but it made me kind of sad. Is that I don't care so much about the timer, but the score being gone um, was interesting to me because even throughout everything, the games kept that, and it was fun in the sense of like trying to do either like max score attempts or seeing what the highest score you can get on a stage is, or the opposite, like low score attempts, like how many coins. We all saw those YouTube videos post Asian
Yeah.
Mario Bros. Use like, can I finish this game without collecting any coins? What is the lowest amount of score I can get based on, the end timer, and like, and not having that in there hurts a little bit.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised. Is like, do you remember at the end of the Super Mario Bros. U, where like they had that post game scoreboard?
Yeah,
And I thought what was cool was like, back in the Wii U era, they actually like posted a challenge on Miiverse on you beat New Super Luigi U with the least amount of coins.
yeah,
That's clever.
Apparently, I was like the first American, or one of at least,
yeah.
who beat the game with 0 coins. And I remember like people like DMing me, "How would you do it?" And I was like, "You have to be Mini Luigi in Stone Crush Tower." And it's like,
Right.
that was a really cool challenge.
Yeah,
So I was a bit disappointed that like Wonder is very much like it's all about the campaign. But
yeah,
besides like not like recording that kind of stuff, there's no challenge mode either.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's like that
I
was one of my favorite parts of you right there.
speaking about like the campaign stuff, I know some people like appreciate like, oh, like there's little fun side stories in the levels, but
yep.
I don't know, that stuff did nothing for me, and
It's very,
it just slowed me down. I just wanted
yeah,
to get to the levels faster.
it's very
Yeah,
talkative. This game is the most talkative 2D Mario ever.
it almost felt to me like they did it in World 3 and 5 just to be like, we're justifying why we don't have a boss for these
Yeah.
worlds.
Yeah, which I would have preferred there to be a boss in those worlds, but I did like that world structures were shaken up. Like World 4 is
Yeah.
very interesting because basically the entire world is open map, and you're finding secrets and most of the world's on the map. So like there's this
Yeah, it's
real
so
map
clever.
play element to it.
Yeah, I even liked how they had like a Zelda, almost Zelda-like thing. You remember where you talk to what were they called, Poplins or something?
Yeah.
There's like, I heard there's a secret behind the sand.
Yeah.
You go there, it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, there's a stage in there.
Yeah, like I walked up to that sand waterfall. I'm like, I bet I can walk through this. And I did. And then I noticed afterwards that when you're standing in front of it, the controller does small vibrations to kind of indicate
Clever.
Wow, I
that
didn't notice
that
that.
something is there. Yeah, if you stand in front of the sand waterfall in World 4, there's like small vibrations that you might at first think, oh, it's just like the waterfall, but then you're like, wait, this doesn't really happen anywhere else. And there's that secret shop guy that's in World 4 too, who's like,
yeah.
I've got 3 Wonder Seeds, and he's like hiding in some spot that normally you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah. Isn't he like, don't tell the others?
Yeah, yeah. There's like some very fun stuff going on with that. that I
Yeah,
really like.
some of the talky humor is funny.
But yeah, no. In terms of like I'm Poplin and I need you to help me climb
why did I
to
have
the
to
top.
go to that little hut at every world?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it slows things
Wasting
down.
my time.
I actually really didn't like it in World 3, which was like, for whatever reason, that was the world with all my least favorite courses in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like that Poplin, not only does he pop up every time you beat the course,
Yep.
it turns out if you replay the levels, he will pop up and then comment on them again.
Yep.
Oh wow.
Poof.
And it's like, it means whenever you want to like play a World 3 level,
Yep.
it will slow down the pace just for him to go, oh, you mastered your skills even more. Then he goes.
And then he goes poof and then leaves.
Just no point. Yeah.
There's a couple of ones that some of the quote unquote secret exits. It happens a couple times in the game where the solution is to actually like go back to the Poplin hut or to go back to like the mine at the end. I was like, what am I missing in World 5? Like, I don't get it. And then I was looking on the course thing, and it's like, oh, there's no check mark here. So I'm like, I think I missed something here. And I remember when I was in there, I'm like, oh, those are blocks that, like, I feel like there's more to this. And you go back, and the blocks are gone because they came back to mine them. And then
I thought that was funny. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's
I,
clever.
I think it would have been
Like,
fun like
even
once, but like it's used a few times, and I'm like, all right, like it's used in World
yeah,
3 when you go to the final Poplin hut again. He's like, "Oh, you're back, something something," and he like shits out an exit to the special world.
yeah. He's like, oh, try this trial.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, like the game is actually very. One other small thing is the game is very like weird about communicating if you found everything in a stage or not. So like
Yeah.
Mario World, you have the red spots on the map which indicate there's alternate exits. This game doesn't have that at all, which is fine. But the way that you have to figure it out is like you have to open up the course menu to see if there's like a check mark on the stage.
I
Yeah.
stopped doing that after a while. I just couldn't bother. It was just a little bit extra annoyance
And
that
I
I
Yeah.
know,
didn't feel like doing.
I bet they realized it was a problem too. Because did you ever notice, like, when you go to those signposts in the game,
Yep.
almost all of them are just like, make sure to open up the map menu. It's like
Yeah.
they probably realized in testing, oh, no one's using this.
Yeah, or they're like, don't get lost. If you get lost, you can look at the map. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
use the
people are
map.
getting
It's like,
confused on the map screen.
how would I get lost in a 2D Mario
Like, how am
game?
I gonna get
I mean,
lost in the the magma area in World 6? It's like, oh, it's
you
confusing.
would,
There's so many layers, and I'm like,
you'd be surprised though.
yeah, no, I mean, I
Yeah.
can definitely see it. That one even has a shortcut back to the top, like, because you're
Yeah, and
like
it's like
so deep.
you have to pay like a poplin for it.
Yeah, and if you come from it from the other side, you have to pay another poplet, which I think is very funny.
Oh, for what?
Yeah,
The shortcut?
Yeah, there's like a boulder. It's one of those
Yeah.
boulder
Mhm.
things. And he's like, I'm only motivated by money.
Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah.
um,
It-
which is interesting. The other thing that sucks for me in terms of replay is that there isn't. I know there was this funny tweet, right? I think it was. I remember who did it, but I'm not gonna say who it was. But they said something to the effect of like, why doesn't Mario Wonder have like a new game plus or whatever? And I was like, okay, that's very funny. Like, what are you on about?
oh, I
But
know what poster you're talking
but
about.
the part of that that is actually an issue for me is that you can't there's no way to start a game with all the badges. So
Mm,
like if you want to say like from stage 1 you want to be invisible, you have
yeah.
to go into the game, you have to find the invisibility badge, and then you can go back. Or like, if you want to play the whole game using the crouch jump, for example, you have to unlock that badge in a playthrough first. There's no like, there's no
Yeah.
Yeah,
way to
New Game
maintain
Plus would be
that.
cool.
I mean that's sort of how I treated my runs. Like I didn't start a new file or a new profile.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would just go to World One. Like my third run was, I played as Daisy in the grapple vine the whole time because,
Yeah.
believe it or not, I find the grapple vine tougher
Oh, it's
because
it's really interesting, especially with the corner
it's
boosts.
yeah, and it's not even like a total upgrade because
Yeah.
you can only do the air twirl if you're crouch jumping with
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
actually
That's
meant
interesting.
Yeah.
That's
so
actually really interesting.
So I just wish, I guess, that there was a way to like if you've beaten the game, or if like you've done the 100% on a profile or something, that there would be a way to. But it doesn't matter because they don't have multiple save slots, so it's like
Yeah.
you have
yeah.
to.
I
So yeah.
I have a question. I
Hmm.
I assume I mean I'm assuming they tested this, but imagine how hard it must have been to test. You have to make sure every single level is completable with every single badge, even those
Oh,
like difficult expert ones.
Yep.
So they must have really just tested every single thing,
I'm sure
right?
oh yeah,
Mario Club
like
went nuts,
Yeah.
oh totally.
like they
Like
usually do.
it's like sometimes to a scary extent I didn't realize till later playthroughs. Like they make sure that Jet Run is completable with everything
Yep.
to the point where I was starting to notice, like in some of the auto scroll stages,
Hmm.
it looks like they have walls specifically so you can like give yourself a little rest if you have the Jet Run badge.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
That
great.
that's actually pretty funny.
And that I found that out because I found a challenge that's tougher with Yoshi than a regular character, which
Yeah.
is the second airship, not the second, yeah, it's the second one. So the airship in Petal Islands, the one with the burners.
Yeah.
So I was trying to beat that course without using a single cloud as Yoshi.
Right.
It's possible, but it's incredibly difficult because when Yoshi gets hit, he gets like sort of hit stunned and
Yeah.
pushed back, so he can't he can't damage boost through all the burners, because if you do, you get flung into a pit and die.
Yeah, he doesn't like recover
Well, like
until he's like on the ground and
if Mario, yeah, he'll lose his power up, but he'll stay in place.
yeah.
So like I was able to beat it as Mario without touching a cloud using Jet Run.
Yeah.
Still haven't figured it out as Yoshi.
Yeah. Um so we've been going on for a bit and there's one last topic that we surprisingly haven't talked about this game, which I think is very important, is we didn't even talk about the power-ups in this game.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
We've talked
can I
about badges, all that stuff, but not the power-ups.
Can I share one quick thought about
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
I love that there's no like wing power up in this game.
same,
Yes, I love that too, actually.
same.
Yeah, they just become such a crutch
Yeah,
in the other ones. Even like I'm someone who's like I'm not like as good as like a Theorymon, but I'm not bad at like Mario games. But even I will like use the raccoon thing sometimes.
yeah,
But if it wasn't there, I would probably be a little happier.
yeah. Every 2D Mario since Mario 3 has had some, like, major one, has had some sort of flying power-up with the exception of, like, what, the first New Super Mario Bros.?
Yeah, and even then, like something that's actually funny to note is they even arguably started before that, because when Hudson made Super Mario Brothers Special, there's actually a flying power up in that
No,
game.
that's funny.
But it's really terrible, like the rest
Yeah.
of the game, because this is what it does. It lets you like swim in the air for like 5 seconds or something.
Oh, yeah, that's weird.
Which it sucks because all the controls in that game suck.
Yeah.
So it could actually get you killed. But I found it funny. I'm like, wow, even Hudson was like, we gotta have a flying power up.
Yeah. But, like, that's been a thing. So, like, New Super Mario Bros., we had the propeller hat, you had the flying squirrel suit. Obviously, everyone knows about the raccoon suit and the tanuki, or the raccoon tail and the tanuki suit, the cape. Um, so when I saw the power-ups for Mario Wonder, I was like, oh my god, finally. There's no obligatory flying power-up. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't a certain power-up that you can basically use as a flying power-up.
Yeah.
But
Or like the balloon one? Or...
the bubble,
Bubble.
Yeah,
yeah.
the bubble, yeah.
You can do that
you can
pretty easily.
Yeah, you can skip massive things with the bubble.
You can pretty much go forever in the air with the bubble. You just have to, like, have, like, the one timing right.
But I think that's the cool part, though, is
Yeah.
that it's way less free than something like the cape. Like,
Yep.
sure, if you're a Mario expert, you can, like,
Yeah.
post a video about how you made, say, Climb to the Beat a total joke because you skipped the entire level.
Yeah.
But it's like, the thing is, if you try to, like, hand little Timmy that, he's gonna struggle to actually do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's basically like the game rewarding you, going, okay, you know how the game works. Go and show off.
Yeah. So I was curious what you guys thought about the power-ups in this game. So obviously we have, Mushroom, Fire Flower, and Star, but the three big ones this time are the Elephant power-up, the Drill power-up, and the Bubble power-up.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I actually really love them to the point where it was a lot like the enemies of the game, where I was thinking like, oh man, you could make a really good Mario Maker course with this.
Right.
Like, all of me, like even Elephant, because like I notice there are some people that don't really like the Elephant because it seems sort of plain in that you're just bigger and you have a trunk.
Yep.
So like on paper, it does seem like, oh, there's not a lot of interesting stuff with this. But it was when I started using it more and more where I started to really like Elephant way more than I expected. Like, it may not seem like much, but being able to run over bigger gaps is actually really crazy. Like, it's funny because like when you look at the Elephant, I think the first thing that was popping in our minds of, oh, it's going to be purposely more awkward and unwieldy.
Yep.
But no, actually, oftentimes, like, the Elephant may be into a speed demon.
Yeah, or like I remember there was a conversation on the Discord. Ragnarok was saying if you do the climb up to the beat with Elephant, it's easier because the Elephant is bigger. So that end wall jumping section is much harder if you're small Mario than if you're the Elephant.
That's fascinating.
Which is interesting.
They were very well aware of it, because if you do like the Prince's recommendation badge for that course, he recommends the auto mushroom.
Oh,
And he does that because it makes it easier to wall jump because you're bigger.
and that's a
Yeah.
So, like,
feature.
they thought of that.
That's a
Yeah.
feature I didn't even engage in, but they assigned a specific badge to every stage for Prince's recommendation.
Yeah, and it's like when I realized that was the Prince's recommendation, I'm like, oh, they did that. Like they thought about the hitboxes there.
Yeah.
Elephant Mario.
Yeah.
Like, that was like, it's funny because like on paper you don't think about that hitbox aspect.
Yeah.
But and it's like the closest I could think of is like people in Mario Maker would make courses where like they could get scary because you're Giant Mario and like Super Mario Brothers 1, and it's like
Right, and he blows up.
they get
stuff.
and it gets nasty because it's like, oh, this big hitbox, you gotta dodge this stuff. That would be so easy if you weren't Giant.
Right. But this
But
is
then
like
here
kind of the
comes Nintendo.
opposite.
Yeah, Nintendo was like, well, what if we flip that on its head? What if being big was good?
Hmm.
Like they constantly find really neat ways. Like I noticed there were like secrets where like it was harder to get to without the elephant because of the
Right.
or the dashing. But actually, I think the thing that for the elephant really blew me away was actually the KO arenas.
Yes.
So the KO arenas, like when those were actually leaked, I wasn't really excited for them. I'm like, oh, like destroy enemy challenges.
Yeah.
I see people do that better in Mario Maker. But
Hmm.
no, they're way more clever than I thought
Yep.
because they would design the enemy layouts in a way where like if you're smart with the elephant, you can like practically sequence break them with your trunk.
Yeah. They're
Like
yeah.
they would be like this enemy's in a specific way where if you jump at just the right height, your trunk will just barely reach them.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
And
with those, I'm
there's-
sure that it's possible to beat all of them with the best, to get all progression items without needing a power up at all.
Yeah, they had to do that because, well, they have to make it so Nabbit can beat them too, because Nabbit can't get power ups.
Right.
Hmm.
So like you'll notice like when they have piranha plants,
Yep.
they'll always have projectiles or like things you can grab just so you can kill them, just in case.
Yep.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah.
But
I didn't
then-
even
that was
think about that at
interesting.
all.
I think one where it also blew my mind. This is actually where the spring figure badge, the one where you jump really high but are constantly bouncing, blew
Mhm.
my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the KO Arena in World 6, the lava world. So there's this part where there's a bunch of fire piranha plants, regular piranha plants coming out of pipes.
Yep.
And you have to find a way to kill them. They're high up. So the normal way is you get the fire for I think the fireworks bomb. I might not be remembering it.
Oh,
but you
yeah,
get
yeah.
something just so you can just reach them. And it's like, oh, I gotta wait, and it's annoying. But they actually made it at just the right height where if you have the drill hat and the spring jump, you
Mhm.
could skip all that and reach every piranha plant and bonk them with your head. It's
Oh,
really
that's
difficult.
cute.
It's difficult because there's projectiles going around, so it's really easy to get hit and totally ruin the strategy.
Yeah.
But it's like Wonder is full of this stuff where you can tell, like the designers are like, we have this specific height in mind, so you can use this specific badge and play it in a totally different way.
Mm.
That, I think, encapsulates why I think Wonder might be my favorite 2D Mario. So in a sense, I actually don't think the game's as perfect as New Super Mario Bros. U. I realize how strange that sounds, but like New Super Mario Bros. U is really consistent with its level design. It's like
Yep.
it's always going to be super polished. It's always going to have a really clear idea, clear ending. Like it feels like, at least on a level design level, it's like a master craftsman at their work.
Right.
But with Wonder, for better and even sometimes worse, it almost feels like the punk rocker of Mario, where like it will be like sometimes it doesn't work. Like there's this one course in World 3, Sugar Star Run or something.
Mhm.
It's like my least favorite course in the game because it's that one where it's in the sky, and if you get a Wonder Flower, you just get stars and destroy the entire level in seconds.
Right.
Mm. Yeah.
And it's like even if you don't get the Wonder Flower, it's like it feels like like the worst Super Mario World levels, like Vanilla Secret 2, where it's just like
Right.
here's the same enemy spammed and you could just dodge them all. It's boring. So, but the thing about Wonder is I think I like it more because it's less perfect in that it's the kind of game where not it doesn't always nail its idea every time, but at the same time, it's not afraid to go so out of the realms of what you would expect from Mario. Not just like in terms of like the wonder flowers, but like to the point where you'll just be messing around with badge combinations, and then you get your mind blown. And you're like, "Oh my god, they specifically designed it to
Right.
play this course in a completely different way."
Right.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
The
Like,
and to go
I just
back,
want to go back to the elephant for one
yeah,
second.
yeah, same.
I also think the water stuff is really cool with the
Yes.
elephant. I think
yes,
it's really just adds a whole new layer. Like I think the elephant without that is like obviously there's the or not obviously, but there is the stuff that Theory mentioned where it's more like the more advanced, like it's a little bigger, it can help you with like subtler cool ways. But in terms of the obvious stuff, like I didn't expect that the water thing was going to be in there or that it would be
Yeah.
used in pretty cool ways as this extinguisher, as this like Mario Sunshine esque blood ish thing.
yeah, they
Yeah.
even mentioned like ask the devs. Apparently, like I think it was actually the idea from someone who worked on Sunshine to add the
Yeah.
water stuff.
Yeah,
That's
I believe
awesome.
that was the case. So you have all of a sudden you have these flowers that you can water. You even have the silly little thing where if you have water in your trunk at the end of a stage, it'll water the poplin.
Oh, that's
It,
adorable.
You know,
so some of the talking flowers have some funny comments. Like
yeah,
there's one where like I think it's also in World 3 where like he's wondering how the water tastes. You give it to him, he's like, fishy, because it's that course with those dart fishes that pop out of the water.
yeah. So there's lots of detail and stuff with that, and also the trunk is almost like a Strider move.
Yeah.
It's kind of-
Almost this is gonna sound silly, but like for some reason, my first thought when I was like starting to like do the KO redos and realizing just how crazy the elephant could be in some of them was like, God, I feel like I'm Zero from Mega Man.
yeah, like you're cutting through stuff with this trunk.
Mm.
And again, yeah, the 2 block thing is interesting because that's another rule of Mario that people don't often know. Where if you're running, you can clear 1 block gaps. That makes it even more even more significant. Um, the drill power up I really like. I feel like it was underutilized compared to the other two a little bit.
Yeah.
It kind of just shows up like midway through the game, which I thought was strange. Um, and it's not like it's a hammer suit or something of that nature. Um, and it like shows up like past the halfway point of the game, if I remember correctly. It's like after World 3,
Yeah, it
or
is.
around there. Um, and it has so much interesting utility, being able to like burrow into the ceiling or burrow into the ground or go underneath walls and stuff like that. And I kind of just wanted to see more stuff for that one because I think it's really cool.
So something I want to experiment more with regarding the drill mushroom. So I had this habit in my later runs where I would take a drill mushroom and give it to new players because the fun thing about online is it lets you help other players sequence break the power ups.
Right.
So what was fun is like giving like new players the drill mushroom super early.
Oh,
And
that's fun.
fun. It's always funny. You could tell if they had never used it before because I would see them almost freak out. They're like, "What is this?" And they just start immediately like ground pounding and stuff.
Yeah.
But then like it also showed me like it almost feels like some of the earlier courses are made with it in mind too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the drill kills bull rushes.
Oh,
If
does
you
it
ground
really?
pound them. And like you can also like go underneath them
Right.
to dodge their charges.
Right.
So like it started making me think, hey, wait a second. So they probably tested all the power-ups in every stage, right?
Yeah, sure.
Which like no wonder this game took so long.
Yeah. It's funny when I played
Because
the demo of the game at Nintendo Live, the drill power up for whatever reason, the stages that they chose, they did include the first stage that the drill power up appears in, which is like in the midway point of the game,
yeah.
the cave course with the stompy things, and they didn't actually have the bubble power up to play with. But the thing that actually tripped me up with the drill mushroom is like how it controlled. Um, it's definitely weird to get used to. Um, like getting used to like going in the ceiling and like
Hmm.
how you exit the ceiling, or like you exit like if it gets if the ceiling turns into a wall, like you'll exit it. Like it's very interesting. It's I feel like it's the most advanced power up, even with the bubble shenanigans.
Hmm.
This is gonna sound weird, but like, even though like the bubble absolutely lets you skip a ton of stuff if you want to,
Yeah.
it also, like I said, it's the kind of thing where if you give it to someone who doesn't play Mario a lot,
Yep.
they're likely to like see the videos of people skipping levels and be like, "Oh, I can't do it." The drill is almost weirdly closer to a flying power up to me. Not
Hmm.
necessarily that like, oh, you could skip the entire level, but like you can very easily just dodge enemies with it. Like it's the
Yeah.
kind of power up where you give it to a little kid. Once they figure out how they drill to the ground, they're immediately like, "Oh, I don't have to worry about all those spinies there. I can just drill under them."
The
Sort of
drill.
like how
Yeah.
the cape in Mario World's like, "Oh,
Right.
I don't like that pit. I'm just gonna fly over it."
The obvious comparison for me with drill is going to be spider ball. Being able to
Yeah, that's a
travel
good.
over the
That's a
ceiling
good
and
point.
stuff like that, which I think is interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
I almost feel like the kind of power ups in Mario where you're usually like, this is the power up so you can skip the hard parts. There's
right.
more regulated badges this time.
Yeah. Yeah. The badges are very much entirely that. Like, oh, you have the para hat badge. Now you can glide better. Oh, you have the midair twirl that makes you like partially double jump. Now you can cheese like certain things. Obviously, the all the assist badges are like this. Um, and the experts even are to a point. They're just harder to use.
Yeah, like the jet run.
Yeah.
There's a really funny one. You know the first special world level, which also has hoppos,
Yep.
which a lot of people constantly die in because you gotta hop over the spikes.
Yep.
It turns out if you use jet run Yoshi, you can skip the entire Wonder Flower. You don't even need it.
That's great.
Because you got just enough space with the flutter jump and the jet run where you can make every single platform.
Yeah. So we're approaching around an hour and a half here, so I think it's time to just ask everybody kind of your final thoughts on the game. Any sort of last thoughts or opinions that you wanted to do. I'll let one up start with this one.
Just like last thoughts of the game in general.
Yeah, anything that we haven't talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've really missed anything, but no, I I've enjoyed this more than any 2D Mario game since Mario World. I had a great time, and I definitely want to finish the other special levels at some point, though not right now, just because I have a lot of other stuff to play. But no, I had a
Yeah.
great time.
That makes sense.
What about you, Theory?
Um, so remember how I was going earlier about saying like Wonder's almost like a punk rock of Mario?
Yeah.
So like it's interesting. Like Wonder didn't turn out quite how I expected in that like it did feel like the logical successor of New Super Mario Brothers U in terms of level design. But like,
Yeah.
you know what? I just realized successor is actually the wrong word. So remember how I said earlier it complements New Super Mario Brothers U.
Yeah.
So and I think I like it a bit more because it's not as perfect as New Super Mario Brothers U.
Yeah.
That's why I think those two games actually go together so well.
Yeah,
Because
that makes
I think
sense.
Wonder is actually like a less consistent game than you. Because I think when Wonder doesn't like have a when Wonder has a level concept that I think doesn't work, those levels really crash down for me.
Yeah.
Like it almost feels like, what was the point of this level? All I did was just get a star and beat the whole thing.
Right.
And with this, like it's not even a secret; it's right there. But when Wonder's at its best, it's like in the final level where it's like they snuck in a hidden shortcut just for races.
Yeah.
So I think the reason why the games complement each other perfectly is because it's almost like they're like two different sides of Mario, where
Yeah.
New Super Mario Bros. U is like the really polished side of Mario, where it's like this game's never going to try and trick you to get a cheap death, and the game's never going to be like yeah, here's this nothing of a level, just jump on a Lakitu and get this hidden Star World exit with the blue Yoshi. Well, it's not blue Yoshi, but you know what level I'm
Yeah.
talking about. So like New Super Mario Bros. U is like very purposely like this is a really reliable game. Like I think Jeremy Parrish was even talking about that, where he's like, it's a reliable all rounder. That's New
Right.
Super Mario Bros. U. Wonder is like the crazy uncle, where sometimes it will do something that doesn't really work,
Yeah.
but other times it will like reach this sort of brilliance where like I never even thought about that in terms of Mario before.
Right.
Or like there will be like, here's this section specifically designed so you can speedrun it, but only if you have the drill and the spring jump.
Right. Yeah, like very
And
specific combinations in
but
mind.
there's one other thing I want to point out, and it's like not even really a gameplay thing,
Hmm.
but it just sort of showed me just how far this game went with going, well, we gotta account for everything. So there is an NPC, like El Poplin, near the end of Petal Island, where he's like, I found a note in a bottle. It's a strange letter that tells you how many Goombas you've defeated.
Oh, right.
And I remember, do you remember how there's that wonder effect that's like a quiz? And one of the
Yes.
questions
Yeah.
actually asks, how many Goombas have you defeated? So it's not only for that, but it went more mind blowing because after I got all the heart points, we actually someone asked in the Discord. We were like, "Hey, I wonder what the maximum amount of Goombas killed is." And after my fourth run, I'm like, "Oh, apparently I've killed 960. Let me see what happens if I get 1,000." And they actually thought of this.
Yeah.
When you kill over 999 Goombas, the game stops counting and it says you've killed over 1,000 Goombas.
Right.
And
Oh.
I went back to the quiz because someone's like, "How does the game react to that?" So if you ever replay the quiz, there's a certain set of questions where that sort of assume game progression. So the game's like, how many badges do you have and stuff like that. Well, whenever you like 100% of an aspect of the game, the quiz recognizes this by putting an exclamation point at the end. So it's like when it asks how many badges you have, you're like, one of the answers is I have all 24 with the exclamation point. Like the game going, good for you. They did that with the Goombas too.
That's funny.
Like they say how many Goombas you killed, and the correct answer for me now is over 1,000 with an exclamation point. And it's like this Mario game feels like it is more built for replaying than any other. Just
Yeah.
a sort of terrifying extent that they would even think about how do we count Goombas kills.
I thought
Yeah.
of literally everything.
And yet it doesn't have
Yeah.
multiple save files.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I would echo that. One thing I just wanted to touch on because we haven't talked about it yet is that the overall visual and the visual package in this game is so charming and so
Mhm.
well thought out. All the characters are injected with a lot of personality, like from the sleeping Goombas that don't hurt you because they're sleeping, um, to all the pipe animations, to the silly things that the flowers say, to the really good posing for all of the jumps. Like the characters in the game look great. They almost created a quasi like sprite based feel with 3D models in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, the music being pretty much all new compositions and stuff. I just thought that it has a lot of personality, and I was glad to see that the Flower Kingdom wasn't just sky world, desert world. Like everything had some kind of thing going on with it. And that third world, which I know you don't like very much, I thought was very fascinating because that is a very atypical world theme, for a Mario game.
Yeah.
I was very struck by it when I played through it. So kudos to that. I really did. I really do believe the game shines in that way.
Yeah, and that's like it's like what I was saying, like even though I feel like Wonder's less perfect,
Yeah,
it's also sort of what makes it special because the game's not afraid to fail with its ideas.
Mhm.
yeah,
Well,
It's
like
more memorable in that aspect.
New Super
Yeah.
Mario Bros. U almost felt scared, like we gotta make sure this is perfect no matter what. Even
yeah,
if like as much as I love that game, sometimes it can almost feel a bit predictable with its concepts.
right.
Like one of my favorite courses in the earlier parts of the game, which is the Seesaw Bridge in the jungle world.
Yeah,
I love how that course ramps up its difficulty with the spinning platforms. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, when I first played that course for the first time, I actually predicted the twists it was going to do because I
Right.
was so used to how modern Mario level design was. I don't necessarily dislike that because I replay them all anyways,
Yeah.
but it struck me how Wonder was almost like, even if the game isn't like Super Mario Bros. 3 level design wise, Super Mario Bros. 3 is similar in that that game is not afraid to fail, even when like, as much as I love that game, Super Mario Bros. 3 like literally has some of my least favorite courses in the series, like
Right.
the Picador Fortress, where it's like the worst Mario Maker archetype. Here's where it came from.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
I
I
think
also
imperfections, like, I don't know.
yeah.
I think a lot of the games that I love have a lot of flaws.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
So
like
like something that's like the new Super Mario Brothers games are very polished, and I think they're very good games, but yeah, it's, I don't want to say polished to a fault, but like they're very safe in that way.
yeah,
Like they're
Yeah.
great levels, like the best 2D platforming levels out there.
I think
it's
it's
just like
yeah.
But very standard.
I don't know how to recommend a video through a podcast, but there's a really fascinating like Mario Maker video that came out like a few months ago. It's
Hmm.
about the history of like troll levels in Mario Maker
Oh,
2.
yes.
Not the unfinished history one. Even
Mm.
I haven't watched as that because that one's like 6 hours long.
God.
But there's another one that it even talks about at the end about how, okay, here is, I found the name of it. The Misunderstood Mischief of Mario Troll Levels. It's like almost 3 hours long, but it's worth watching.
Hmm.
And at the end, they actually featured a Mario Maker 2 troll level that got featured in an art exhibit. Because that
Oh,
happened.
yeah.
Wow.
That's
But
insane.
what's funny is I rewatched that video recently, and it sort of struck me how much some things reminded me of Super Mario Brothers Wonder.
Yeah.
In that, um, how do I say this? It's okay. So I feel like when we were talking about like critical consensus on video games and just like video game discourse in general, I think we all know that there's sort of a bent towards negativity, like we focus on the flaws of a game.
Right.
But seeing that video and thinking about Wonder and how it compared to other Mario games recently is, this is going to sound strange, but sometimes I feel like flaws in a video game aren't necessarily a bad thing.
They sort of elevate it in a way.
Yeah, like even like there's some habits of Wonder that we discussed that I don't like say the silly stuff with how, oh, the alternate exit is you skip the Wonder Flower,
Hmm.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But because that game is so unafraid to fail compared to like New Super Mario Brothers U, it leads to some really memorable stuff
Yeah. You
that
associate
makes
it.
me think of that makes me think of Mario in completely new ways. Like just from messing around the game, I could like how a lot of us complained how Yoshi's like baby mode.
Yeah.
Well, after doing that, like I'm like, wait a second, there's benefits to baby modes for expert players because I found, wait, there's some stuff with Yoshi that I find much more difficult than Mario.
Right. So it's not necessarily strictly a baby mode, depending on the context that you're coming into it.
Yeah, so like because Wonder is so unafraid to unafraid with the concept of failing, it also is able to show you Mario design in like a completely new way, even if it doesn't make sense on paper. Like it doesn't make sense on paper that Yoshi could be harder. He's invincible.
Right.
But then there's contexts where it's like, oh no, that pushback made that course way more difficult because now if I get hit, I get fried by the lava.
Right.
And this game was constantly like, the game was unafraid to challenge like Mario standard, like Mario preconceptions, I guess,
Yeah.
even
Um,
in really subtle ways.
and with that, I think it stands. You made it a point earlier, and I think that's a good point to end on. That the game complements New Super Mario Bros. U, and I feel like it also complements Mario Maker, like a lot of Switch games that have multiple series
Yes.
entries on it. Like Pokemon has multiple series entries, and they're all very distinct in their own way. I feel like this is another example of that, where like Wonder is a different experience from New Super Mario Bros. U, and it doesn't outright replace it, but it complements it. And the same with Mario Maker. It's like they're very
Oh,
all
absolutely.
different takes um, on a 2D Mario game. So I'm curious to see, over time how those games continue to perform, especially New Super Mario Bros. U. I don't necessarily think that New Super Mario Bros. U is just going to like drop off and fall into a fire now, um,
Yeah, I don't think
in
so.
terms of sales performance. But that was just to say that it's a very distinct game. So
Yeah, and I think that's what I wanted the most in the end of myself is I wanted a new way to look at Mario, and even if Wonder doesn't do everything I want, it absolutely delivered a completely different way of viewing Mario in spades.
yeah. So on that note, that has been the first episode in a long ass time. I want to thank Theorymon for being here today. Thank you for chatting Mario with us.
No problem. I
Uh,
love chatting about Mario.
Thanks One Up for being here. We
Yeah, thank
finally got
you.
another
Yeah, I'm
another
happy.
episode out. Um, so yeah, I'm sure we'll have something else soon. Maybe a sales episode, maybe something else. So, yeah, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.
Peace out.
Yeah.